Hold on. Before you drop another cent on an overpriced RAV4 or CR-V, you need to pause and actually hear this. Right now, there are 5 incredibly durable SUVs sitting on dealership lots that almost nobody is buying. And, believe it or not, the lack of attention is exactly what makes them a steal. These vehicles cost several $1,000s less, last just as long, and come packed with features that quietly make your neighbor regret paying full price just for a familiar badge. We're talking about SUVs that real mechanics actually recommend. Vehicles that fly completely under the radar while everyone else lines up for the same predictable choices. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to admit. Some of these models are outperforming Toyota and Honda in reliability data. They're just not getting the spotlight. Stick with me, because number 3 is going to catch you off guard, and your future bank statements will thank you. 5. Kia Sportage. Let's start with a vehicle that's been trapped in the shadow of its own reputation. And honestly, it's almost ridiculous how many buyers walk right past it without a second glance. The Kia Sportage. I already know what you're thinking. Kia, the brand your uncle bought because he couldn't afford a real car? Yeah, about that. That same uncle is probably sleeping peacefully now while you're staring at a monthly payment that makes your stomach tighten. Here's what genuinely blows my mind about the Sportage. It comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Let that sink in. 10 years. Toyota gives you 3. Honda gives you 3. Kia looked at the entire industry and said, "Watch this." They're so confident this SUV won't fall apart that they're willing to back it for a full decade. That's not just warranty coverage. That's confidence written into a legal contract. So, why are dealers struggling to move them compared to the usual favorites? Simple. It's a badge problem. And right now, that badge problem is the smartest loophole in the car market. Most buyers are still mentally stuck in 2005, back when Kia's vehicles were, let's say, questionable. But around 2015, everything changed. Kia hired designers from Audi, brought in engineers with BMW backgrounds, and made a very deliberate decision to build vehicles that didn't self-destruct halfway through their first ownership cycle. The result? The Sportage quietly became a genuinely solid SUV that almost no one gives proper credit to. The current generation comes with a turbocharged engine that delivers real power without guzzling fuel, like efficiency is optional. We're talking about real-world mileage that actually matches what the window sticker promises, which if you've owned an SUV in the last few years, you know is almost unheard of. The transmission is smooth, the suspension is well sorted, and the ride quality makes you forget you're supposedly driving a budget brand. Step inside, and it gets even more interesting. The interior doesn't feel cheap, not even close. In fact, it feels nicer than vehicles costing $10,000 more. Materials feel solid. The layout makes sense. Nothing feels rushed or slapped together. And the data backs this up. Consumer Reports consistently rates the Sportage above average for reliability. J.D. Power has it outperforming long-established competitors in dependability studies. But because public perception hasn't caught up yet, you can walk into a dealership and negotiate like you're buying a used lawnmower. If you're shopping used, depreciation works completely in your favor. If you're buying new, dealers are eager enough to move these that the incentives alone would make a Honda salesperson uncomfortable. Now, let's address the obvious objection. But it's not a Toyota. Exactly, and that's the point. You're not paying Toyota money for the same level of reliability. The Sportage uses a proven engine platform refined over multiple generations. Its suspension has been tested in everything from brutal Scandinavian winters to Arizona desert heat. Build quality coming out of Kia's factories today is genuinely impressive. Tight panel gaps, solid door closes, and none of the rattles people still expect out of habit. Here's a secret most mechanics won't advertise because it hurts business. The Sportage is boring to work on. Things rarely break. Routine maintenance parts are affordable and easy to find. You're not waiting weeks for some proprietary component that costs hundreds for no good reason. And then there's the tech. Kia didn't just keep up, they showed off. Dual-zone climate control, heated and ventilated seats, an infotainment system that actually works without testing your patience, blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control. Features that other brands hide behind expensive trim levels come standard or nearly standard here. So why does this SUV keep getting overlooked? Simple. Badge snobbery and outdated assumptions. While everyone else fights over CRVs at full MSRP with zero negotiation room, you could be driving away in a Sportage that's just as reliable, better equipped, significantly cheaper, and backed by a warranty longer than most celebrity marriages. The Sportage isn't just a smart purchase. Right now, it might be the smartest buy in the compact SUV segment, and the fact that people keep ignoring it, that's pure savings for anyone paying attention. 4. Hyundai Creta, the Hyundai Creta. Yes, I know. You've probably never heard of it. And that's not an accident. That's the entire story. Here's what makes this situation absolutely wild. The Creta has been the best-selling SUV in India since 2020. It dominated the Russian market for 4 consecutive years. It's the third best-selling Hyundai model globally. In some individual markets, it moves more than 150,000 units per year. And yet, if you walk into a Hyundai dealership in North America, the UK, or Australia and ask for one, you'll be met with a look usually reserved for someone requesting a unicorn with massaging seats. Why? Because Hyundai doesn't want you to know it exists. Hyundai made a calculated business decision. They looked at developed markets and said, "We can charge more by pushing the Kona." So they kept the Creta confined to emerging markets, places where buyers prioritize value over brand perception. It's automotive gatekeeping at its finest. Hyundai is intentionally keeping one of its most successful compact SUVs out of reach of the buyers who would benefit from it the most, simply because higher profit margins matter more than practical logic. But this is where things get interesting for people who know how to shop intelligently. If you understand where to look, the Creta is still attainable. In markets like South Africa, Brazil, Indonesia, and several others, Hyundai couldn't justify its usual premium pricing strategy. And that's exactly why the Creta thrives there. These are markets where buyers focus on long-term reliability, maintenance costs, and real-world durability, not badge prestige. And the Creta has dominated because it delivers on all three. Under the skin, the Creta shares its core platform with the Hyundai Venue sold in North America. But this isn't a simple copy-and-paste exercise. The Creta is longer, more refined, and far better equipped. Features that would easily cost thousands extra on mainstream competitors come standard here. We're talking about a 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system, LED daytime running lights, 17-inch alloy wheels, leather seating, push-button start, power folding mirrors, a reversing camera, hill start assist, and 6 airbags. All included as baseline equipment in most markets. That's not a premium trim, that's the entry point. The engine options reveal just how confident Hyundai is in this platform. There's a naturally aspirated 1.5-liter gasoline engine refined over multiple generations and proven to be nearly indestructible. A turbocharged option delivers strong performance without the fragility normally associated with high-stress engines. And in some regions, a diesel variant is so efficient it quietly makes hybrid owners reconsider their choices. Transmission options reinforce the same philosophy. A 6-speed manual for drivers who still value engagement. A CVT that doesn't feel like it's constantly slipping or second-guessing itself. And a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission that shifts faster and more decisively than you'd expect at this price point. And yes, these are the same powertrains Hyundai confidently sells in higher-priced markets. They're simply packaged in a vehicle Hyundai decided certain buyers don't need, where margins matter more. From an engineering perspective, this is where the Creta truly earns respect. Hyundai built it using a mix of ultra-high-strength steel and advanced high-strength steel throughout the chassis. That's not marketing language. That's real structural engineering usually reserved for vehicles costing significantly more. The rigid body structure eliminates the creaks, flex, and rattles that plague cheaper SUVs once they've spent time on imperfect roads. Suspension tuning wasn't done in a controlled lab either. This setup has been tested on icy Scandinavian roads, through Indian monsoons, and across uneven Brazilian highways. In other words, it's been validated in conditions that make most local test tracks look like freshly paved parking lots. Interior space is another area where the Creta quietly embarrasses so-called luxury SUVs. With 433 liters of cargo space behind the rear seats, it already outperforms many competitors. Fold down the split rear seats, and you have more usable cargo room than most owners will ever realistically need. Rear seat legroom is generous enough for full-grown adults to sit comfortably without planning an escape strategy. Headroom is ample, so passengers aren't forced into a permanent slouch. This is space designed for real people and real use, not just impressive numbers printed on a brochure. Now, let's finally address the elephant everyone keeps tiptoeing around. The real reason the Creta is overlooked in markets where it's available comes down to pure badge snobbery, reinforced by Hyundai's own marketing decisions. In developed markets, the Kona is positioned as the premium compact SUV, and Hyundai has no interest in letting the Creta undercut those sales. It's the automotive equivalent of luxury fashion brands destroying unsold inventory instead of discounting it, simply because perception matters more than logic. Meanwhile, in the markets where the Creta is sold, buyers who actually track ownership costs and reliability data are snapping these up without hesitation. They know exactly what they're getting: a vehicle engineered to the same standards as models sold in premium markets, minus the artificial markup. And that right there is precisely why content like this exists. 3. Subaru Forester. Now let's move on to number 3. And this is where things get controversial. I can already hear the keyboards warming up. The Subaru Forester. Before anyone rushes to comment that everyone knows about the Forester, let me stop you right there. Knowing something exists and actually choosing to buy it are two completely different things. The Forester is the automotive equivalent of that dependable friend who never gets invited to parties because they're not flashy. Yet somehow, they're the only one willing to help you move apartments at 6 in the morning without complaining. Here's the uncomfortable statistical reality. The Forester consistently ranks among the top 5 vehicles for safety, sits comfortably in the top 10 for reliability, and has one of the highest owner retention rates in the entire automotive industry. Translation: people who buy Foresters tend to buy another one. Once you own one, you start realizing just how much every other SUV has been overselling the wrong priorities. And yet, walk through any average parking lot and start counting. RAV4s everywhere. Rogues stacked row after row, escapes as far as the eye can see. Foresters, barely a handful. It's not even close. The Forester is the SUV people should be buying, but consistently don't. And that alone makes it the textbook definition of overlooked. Now let's break down why this vehicle is engineered in a fundamentally different way from everything else on this list, and why that difference matters far more than most buyers realize. Subaru builds the Forester around a boxer engine. That means the pistons move horizontally instead of vertically like almost every other manufacturer that chose the simpler, cheaper route. Why does that matter? Because it lowers the center of gravity, improves weight distribution, and creates a level of mechanical balance most SUVs simply can't match. The result is a vehicle that feels planted and stable, handling more like a well-sorted wagon than a tall, top-heavy crossover. That's not branding, that's physics, and you feel it every single time you turn the wheel. There's a running joke in the automotive world that Subaru engineers are the last ones who still remember cars are supposed to be enjoyable to drive, even when they're practical. But where the Forester truly separates itself is the feature mechanics quietly respect the most: symmetrical all-wheel drive, standard across the lineup. Not a reactive electronic system that kicks in after you're already sliding. Not a part-time setup that only sends power when conditions are already bad. This is a full-time mechanical all-wheel drive system. Every wheel receives power all the time. Every wheel contributes to traction and stability. When roads get slick or weather turns ugly, you're not relying on sensors and software to save you. You're just driving. That's the difference between a vehicle that has all-wheel drive and one that's genuinely built around it. Anyone who's driven both understands exactly what that means. When it comes to reliability, the Forester story becomes almost boring. And that's exactly what you want if you plan to own a vehicle for 10 years or more. Consumer Reports consistently rates it above average for reliability. J.D. Power scores it well for dependability. But the real proof comes from Subaru owners with 200,000 miles on the odometer. The story is always the same: routine maintenance, regular oil changes, and the car simply refuses to quit. The boxer engine, when properly cared for, is remarkably durable. The transmission, whether manual or CVT, has gone through enough generations that Subaru has addressed most of the weaknesses that plague competitors. This is refinement through repetition, not rushed redesigns. So why do people still walk right past the Forester? First, let's be honest. It's not conventionally attractive. It looks like practicality on wheels. Subaru's design philosophy can best be described as unapologetically functional. They've never chased beauty awards. Exterior styling evolves slowly because Subaru understands their buyers care more about visibility, cargo capacity, and ground clearance than impressing strangers at a country club. And ironically, that's exactly why it gets ignored. We live in a world where vehicles are chosen based on how they photograph on Instagram, not how they perform over 10 years of ownership. Inside, the Forester quietly dominates without shouting about it. The cargo area is large, usable, and clearly designed by people who understand that real humans carry real things, not just grocery bags staged for marketing photos. Rear seat space is generous enough that installing child seats doesn't feel like a mechanical puzzle, and adults can sit back there without feeling punished for existing. Visibility is exceptional because Subaru refused to sacrifice window size for an aggressively sloped roofline. You can actually see out of this vehicle, which somehow feels revolutionary in modern automotive design. Safety is another area where Subaru essentially decided to show up everyone else. Their EyeSight driver assist system comes standard on most trims and includes adaptive cruise control, pre-collision braking, lane departure warning, and lane keeping assist that works smoothly instead of bouncing you between lane markers like an arcade game. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety hands the Forester Top Safety Award so consistently it's practically expected. When safety organizations start running out of new compliments, you know the engineering is solid. But here's the real reason the Forester belongs on this list, and it's something you only understand after years of ownership. This vehicle was engineered for longevity in an industry built around planned obsolescence. Subaru prioritizes long-term durability over short-term cost-cutting. That means you might pay slightly more upfront, but you avoid being slowly drained by constant repairs and unexpected failures over time. Parts are reasonably priced. Maintenance schedules are straightforward. Independent mechanics actually enjoy working on them because the engineering makes sense instead of being needlessly complicated. So why is the Forester overlooked? Because it's capable without being flashy, dependable without being exciting, and practical without chasing trends. It's the SUV driven by the financially responsible friend while everyone else is drowning in car payments. And in a culture obsessed with image over substance, that makes it nearly invisible. But for buyers who value safety, durability, and keeping their money where it belongs, the Forester isn't just overlooked. It's exactly the point. 2. Mazda CX-5. Now, number 4 is going to make luxury brand owners deeply uncomfortable. And that discomfort is exactly why we need to talk about it. The Mazda CX-5. This is the SUV that has been quietly humiliating vehicles costing $20,000 more, while somehow remaining overlooked as buyers line up to overpay for German badges and mainstream Japanese names. If the automotive industry had a best-kept secret, this would be it. And the irony? It's been hiding in plain sight for more than a decade. Here's what makes the CX-5 situation genuinely wild. Mazda took everything they learned from studying luxury brands, hired designers who understood that elegance doesn't require excessive chrome, and then priced the result in a way that makes premium SUV buyers look like they skipped basic math. The interior materials in the CX-5 are legitimately superior to what you'll find in entry-level BMWs and Audis. Soft-touch surfaces where your hands actually go. Real stitching that isn't painted on illusion. Fit and finish that makes you question why anyone is paying luxury prices for hard plastic dashboards with a prestigious logo. Mazda calls their philosophy Jinba Itai, horse and rider as one. In practice, it means they care about how the vehicle feels to drive, not just how it looks parked under showroom lights. That focus becomes obvious the moment you drive it. The CX-5 doesn't feel like an appliance. The suspension is tuned for feedback. The steering has weight and communication. Throttle response feels direct instead of filtered through layers of software and hesitation. You're driving the vehicle, not managing it. Automotive journalists often joke that the CX-5 feels like Mazda accidentally built a sporty wagon and then raised it to crossover height. And once you experience it, nearly every other SUV in the segment feels numb and disconnected by comparison. Now, let's talk about Skyactiv technology, because this is where Mazda deliberately went in the opposite direction of everyone else. While competitors chased hybrid complexity and added layers of weight, Mazda rethought the fundamentals of internal combustion. Higher compression ratios, lighter internal components, smarter fuel injection, transmission programming that actually makes sense. The outcome speaks for itself. real-world fuel economy that aligns with, and often exceeds, official ratings. If you've owned modern vehicles, you already know how rare that is. Power delivery is linear and predictable, without the delayed turbo behavior that makes competitors feel sluggish off the line. The transmission operates so smoothly that, in daily driving, it practically disappears. This is engineering focused on how a car feels to drive, not how impressive it looks on a spec sheet. And the reliability data tells a story most mainstream outlets conveniently ignore because it doesn't fit the narrative. Consumer Reports routinely places the CX-5 among the most dependable compact SUVs you can buy. In long-term dependability studies, it frequently outperforms both Honda and Toyota. That should be headline news. Instead, it gets brushed aside because many people still refuse to accept that Mazda has been building exceptionally durable vehicles for years. The powertrain is a major reason why. The engine and transmission pairing has been refined across multiple generations, giving Mazda time to identify and eliminate weak points, something manufacturers rushing first-generation designs rarely achieve. When you find a CX-5 with 150,000 miles that still feels tight and composed, that's not luck. That's intentional engineering. From a value perspective, things get even more interesting. The CX-5 holds its value better than almost anything else in its class. That means you're not just buying a well-built vehicle, you're making a financially sound decision. While CR-Vs and RAV4s routinely sell at or above MSRP with zero negotiation because buyers believe they're the only safe options, the CX-5 often sits on dealership lots with real incentives and meaningful discounts. Dealers want these vehicles gone not because there's anything wrong with them, but because buyers have been conditioned to believe reliability begins and ends with two specific brands. That misconception creates a clear arbitrage opportunity for anyone willing to spend a few minutes researching beyond marketing slogans. You end up with equal or better reliability, a superior driving experience, higher interior quality, and you pay less for it. It's the automotive equivalent of finding premium clothing at outlet prices, while everyone else fights over basic items at full retail. When it comes to cargo space and everyday practicality, Mazda made smart compromises. The CX-5 isn't chasing the largest-in-class title because Mazda understands most people aren't hauling construction materials every weekend. What you get instead is usable, intelligent space, rear seats that fold flat when needed, storage solutions that suggest real people were considered during the design process, ground clearance that's genuinely functional without turning entry and exit into a climbing exercise, and overall dimensions that allow you to park in normal spaces without stress or second attempts. Safety is another area where Mazda refused to settle for box checking. The CX-5 is engineered to protect occupants, not just earn badges. Top safety pick awards from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety aren't occasional wins. They're expected outcomes, achieved year after year. The iActiveSense driver assistance suite includes all the modern safety tech buyers expect, but it's tuned to assist rather than annoy. Automatic emergency braking doesn't panic over shadows. Lane departure systems guide instead of fighting the driver. Blind spot monitoring works consistently without constant false alerts. It's safety technology that feels like it was designed by people who actually drive, not just people who analyze spreadsheets. So why does the CX-5 remain overlooked despite outperforming much of its competition? Brand perception and marketing budgets. Mazda doesn't spend like Toyota or Honda. It doesn't carry the luxury prestige of German brands, and it doesn't benefit from the cult-like loyalty Subaru has built. What Mazda does have is a vehicle that excels in every category that actually matters for ownership, built by a company that invests in engineering instead of advertising dominance. For buyers who care about driving feel, material quality, long-term reliability, and real value, the CX-5 isn't just competitive. It's the obvious answer. That most people overlook it? That's their mistake, and your advantage. 1. Toyota RAV4. Now, number 5 is where things get uncomfortable, and I can already feel the confusion through the screen. The Toyota RAV4. Yes, the same RAV4 I told you to stop overpaying for at the beginning. You might think this is where the argument falls apart, but stay with me. This is where we separate informed buyers from people blindly following the crowd straight into bad financial decisions. The RAV4 isn't overlooked because nobody knows about it. It's overlooked because most people are buying it in the worst possible way. Here's the madness of the current RAV4 market. Walk into a Toyota dealership and you'll see buyers paying $5,000 to $10,000 over MSRP, waiting months for delivery, and accepting whatever trim level and color the dealer decides to offer, all because they've been convinced this is the only reliable SUV that exists. It's herd mentality wrapped in a financing agreement. At the same time, the used RAV4 market is flooded with low-mileage examples from owners who quickly realized they paid far more than necessary for something they didn't actually need. And that's exactly where informed buyers step in. The RAV4 itself isn't the problem. What people are missing is where the real value lives. To understand why the RAV4 became the default answer for anyone who searched most reliable SUV exactly once, credit is due. Toyota's reputation for reliability isn't hype. It's backed by decades of data showing these vehicles keep running even when maintenance is treated as optional. The RAV4, specifically, has been refined across multiple generations to the point where the engineering is well understood. Known weak points have been identified, corrected, and quietly eliminated over time. The result is an SUV that delivers genuine dependability. These are vehicles that routinely pass 200,000 miles and still operate as if they're mildly offended you ever doubted them. The powertrain philosophy is intentionally conservative. In automotive terms, that means Toyota prioritized longevity over chasing horsepower numbers meant to impress on paper. The hybrid version is the perfect example of this approach. When properly maintained, it's one of the most durable electrified systems available, largely because Toyota has been refining hybrid technology for more than 2 decades. Battery longevity is excellent. Regenerative braking works efficiently instead of feeling gimmicky. And the transition between gasoline and electric power is so smooth you forget you're driving a hybrid until you realize how rarely you stop for fuel. It's electrification done right, without range anxiety, charging drama, or infrastructure headaches that still plague full EVs. Now comes the part that makes people uncomfortable. The RAV4 isn't objectively better than the other vehicles on this list. It's not more reliable than the Mazda. It's not better engineered than the Subaru. It's not more feature-rich than the Kia. And it's certainly not more distinctive than the Creta. What it is, however, is proven and universally available. That availability creates peace of mind with real value attached to it. If something goes wrong in the middle of nowhere, finding Toyota parts and a qualified mechanic is rarely a challenge. Resale value stays strong because buyers collectively believe in the Toyota reputation. That means you're not just purchasing reliability, you're purchasing liquidity when it's time to sell. And that has real financial weight, even if it's unfair to the equally capable vehicles we've talked about. So why does the RAV4 belong on this list if it's the most popular SUV in the segment? Because most buyers are approaching it completely wrong. They're buying new in a seller's market. They're paying dealer markups without negotiation. They're accepting long wait times and whatever trim or color happens to be available. And they're completely ignoring the used market, where the real opportunity exists. The smart approach to the RAV4 is buying a certified pre-owned model that's 2 to 3 years old. Let someone else absorb the inflated dealer markup and early depreciation. What you get in return is proven Toyota reliability at a price that actually makes sense. Same drivetrain, same parts availability, same resale strength, just without paying the premium that comes with buying new in an overheated market. That's the overlooked angle here: timing and market awareness. While everyone else fights over new inventory and pays whatever dealers demand, the used market quietly rewards buyers who understand that a 3-year-old RAV4 is functionally identical to a new one, just significantly cheaper. Toyota builds these vehicles to last decades. Buying used doesn't mean inheriting someone else's problems. It means taking advantage of artificial market conditions that don't reflect the vehicle's real durability. It's the same reliable SUV, purchased by someone who understands value. So, there you have it. 5 genuinely excellent SUVs that are overlooked for 5 very different reasons. The Sportage, because of outdated badge prejudice. The Creta, because manufacturers don't want you to have access to it. The Forester, because it's too practical to be fashionable. The CX-5, because Mazda invested in engineering instead of massive marketing budgets. And the RAV4, because most buyers are purchasing it the wrong way and ignoring where the real value actually is. The common thread is simple. Every one of these vehicles will get you where you need to go reliably, affordably, and without the financial regret that comes from blindly following the crowd. If this video saved you from making an expensive mistake, hit subscribe, because we'll keep breaking down the information the automotive industry rarely highlights. Drop a comment letting me know which one you're considering, or share an overlooked option that deserves attention. And if you found this helpful, send it to someone about to overpay for their next SUV. Their bank account will thank you.